Today for English, we're going to go through the features of a cartoon together. I'm Mrs. Celeste Swart, and we'll be looking at this together. When we think of something called the features of a cartoon, what are we looking at? It could be something like characteristics, traits, attributes. It tells us what a cartoon is compiled of, what we might find in it, and what it consists of. So we know that a cartoon is a picture or pictures that are designed to make us laugh, that they comment on current events, they tell stories. They love to comment on political or social events in a humorous way. You'll notice that it says here cartoons or comic strips. A cartoon is usually one picture, and comic strips is when we have frames, a few pictures. So those are some of the things we're going to look at, but we're going to just move on because the list is pretty long today. When we look at a cartoon, it's sometimes a single picture and sometimes more than one picture. If it's more than one picture, then it will be numbered. Then we call them frames, and they are numbered. Frame number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is when you get questions, you'll know when they ask you to identify something or discuss something in a specific frame, you'll know that that's what you have to look at. The characters in a cartoon, they could be human, they could be animal, they could be inanimate. It could also be famous people who are drawn as caricatures. Now, a caricature is when someone draws these people and they exaggerate. Maybe they have big ears or big nose or big forehead or something like that. So here we have a little character, a book with a smile on its face and thumbs up. So we know that that is a character. We also look at body language and facial expressions. Now, often when they ask you for body language, they mean facial expressions as well. So rather say too much. What is body language? We look at the posture. That's the way the person carries themselves. Their facial expressions, we know if they're frowning or they're smiling or their mouths are drawn down and they're crying tears. And then gestures. How do they use their hands? How do they explain things or show things? So we can read to interpret how a character is feeling, the same as you do with your friends. You look at your friend and you know immediately how he or she feels because you know when you look at your friend, they're happy or sad. How do you know? You read. But you have to learn to say in words what you see. You can't say, I see he's sad. How can I see it? I can see it on his face. What do you see on his face? You have to look at how the body is held, the posture. Someone's shoulders might be drooping forward or droopy shoulders, and that could be because they're overwhelmed or unhappy. So there are quite a few ways to look at these and interpret it. Practice by looking at people and interpreting how they feel, and look at their expressions, and you'll be able to see how someone feels. You look at your teacher and you say, I mustn't look for trouble with ma'am today. She's angry. How do you know she's angry? Ask yourself, how do you know how someone's feeling? This is just to give you an idea of facial expressions, body language, and gestures, people using their hands to show how they feel. Then we have setting. A setting of any cartoon is where it takes place. How do you know that? You can't just say the first one's in the principal's office. How do you know it's the principal's office? It's obviously there's a desk, there's someone sitting behind the desk. And if you weren't sure that it's the principal's office, there's a certificate up on the wall. We've all seen SpongeBob. How would you be able to tell me that you know it's under the sea? You would know it's under the sea because you see the bubbles of the water, you see the sea creatures, things like that. Make sure that you can say why you say something is in a specific place and why you know people are feeling a certain way or characters are feeling a certain way. So make sure that you can do that you can see that, okay? Speech or thought bubbles. Now, you can see there's different bubbles here. This thought bubble will have little, like loose circles, the bottom one in the center, to show this is what someone's thinking. A speech bubble is usually a solid bubble. Those with the jagged edges could be because someone's shouting or angry. But then we also find that sometimes there are lightning bolts. The lightning bolt, it's just this little line to show when someone is speaking. It can also be a caption below a cartoon that shows you that someone's speaking. And it's usually very obvious who is speaking in a situation like that. So let's have a look here. Here we have an example of the different types of speech bubbles and also the caption at the bottom. I hope I said caption just now. I'm not quite sure now, but the caption could be at the bottom, it could be at the top. We see Dennis speaking to Margaret. There's the caption at the bottom showing he's speaking. And then with Margaret, we see the little clouds, and it's what she is thinking. Punctuation. Incorrect punctuation can create humor. We look at this example. Let's eat grandma. Goodness, who wants to eat grandma? But if you say, let's eat, comma, grandma, you're saying, let's have supper, grandma, let's have lunch, grandma. So that's why they say punctuation saves lives. But punctuation is also very important in our cartoons because it can indicate emotion, because it's the words that the character is speaking. And if there's an exclamation mark, then it indicates this person's making a statement, very serious statement. And if it's a question mark, obviously it's a question. So it can be used to assist with helping to get the right tone and the right feel to this cartoon. Then movement lines. These are usually indicated as this is on this picture. You can see the lines that shows he's running. And did you notice that there are little clouds at the bottom, but it's little dust clouds. And the little dust clouds are also to indicate just how fast he's running. Just behind his head, we see the little water splashing, and that would be he's perspiring. That's how fast and how hard he's working. So you can see here from the body language of this character and looking at the lines, the movement lines, looking at the little dust clouds, you can see exactly what is going on here. Then language and humor. Now, a comic strip need not include any language. There can be visuals only, the visual clues, and that could reflect the intended message and or humor. The cartoon on the right, or the comic strip on the right, you see it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. So they've numbered their frames that way, but we usually write frame 1, frame 2. And you can see the story that's happening there, and you'd be able to tell a story about it. And it will assist you to see, I don't need any words. The language or diction often contributes to the humor, however. A contrast or comparison between what is said and what is happening. If we look at the one on the left, we've got the, what do we call him, the Grim Reaper. And he's standing there, and this poor man's hanging on the edge of the cliff, and he's got the vulture looking at him. And he just hears this voice say, don't worry, man, everything's going to be just fine. Just grab onto this. But now what is this that we know? What creates humor in this? But it's not funny, haha, is that if he grabs that stick, he's going to fall anyway because the Grim Reaper's got it. So you have to look at often comparing what's being said to what is actually happening. And often in that way, they will create humor. And if you are asked to discuss the humor in a cartoon, that means there is humor. Look at what is being said and what is being done. Then the font, type and size. You get different types of font. You can get one that looks like the red one, scary. If it's all in uppercase, it could be that this person is shouting, but it could also be the cartoonist style. So if the cartoonist does everything in capitals or uppercase, they probably will keep doing it. And then bold letters are usually used to emphasize something. And sometimes there's one bold word within the cartoon, within what's being said. And that is because they wanted to stand out. They want to emphasize something. But you can't just say bold letters are used to emphasize. To emphasize what? You understand? You must give a reason. Things like POW, there you have that effect of special font and wow. So we see that font can be very well used to create different ideas. And remember as well, in an exam, you will not get colored font. You will get, everything will be in black and white. Now, stereotypes and symbols. This is stereotypes are when we have preconceived ideas about what someone in a specific career will look like and behave like. We look at a chef. Whenever we see someone in a chef's hat and stuff, we know that's a chef. We look at a doctor, we expect the stethoscope around the neck. With the engineer, we expect the hard hat and the fluorescent clothes and the map rather, the blueprints under the arm. You see, those are things we expect. Then we have symbols, things like a heart is linked to love. We see like the wizard's hat, we think of, it's to do with magic, the ring to do with marriage. And an apple you could associate with a teacher, or if you want to look at it in a different way, you might associate it with the wicked witch that who gives the apple to Snow White to eat, and then she bites the apple and she falls into this deep sleep. So symbols are very important, and in an exam you are not going to get a red heart, you will get a heart and know what the symbol means. So you're going to account for, in other words, you're going to be able to identify and give reasons for visual clues. The visual clues are all the things, the pictures, the body language, the facial expressions, everything that's the drawings, where your linguistic clues are your verbal, those are the words, and sometimes font falls in the visual clues because sometimes the bold is actually so big, like sail, that, you know, things like that, that it stands out as it's something to draw your eye. And then humor, you need to always remember, it's what makes it funny. You can't just look at a cartoon and say, I don't think that's funny. You've got to look at what. There's often a contradiction between the visual clues and the linguistic clues, and that's what makes it funny. Okay. So I want to remind you to always remember that practice makes perfect. I want you to make sure that you always go, that you always check, that you do your very best and try these. If you go home and you decide when you walk around, you see how different people behave, try and think of an idea of why someone is doing something. If you look at cartoons, if you look at anything, even if it's on television, try and make sure that you can interpret the messages that you're reading, even if it's non-verbal. Thank you so much for today, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon further. Bye-bye.